All right, it's 2:15. So hi, everyone. This is Caron Whitaker. I'm with the League of American Bicyclists. Thanks for joining this session on the AASHTO Council on Active Transportation. A few housekeeping rules. I'm sure you've heard these a few times already these last 2 days. This is being taped. And so we've started you all on mute. Please leave yourself on mute until we get to the Q&A portion. You can enter either through the Whova app or Zoom. We recommend Zoom. And please put any questions you have in the Zoom chat. That's where we'll be looking for those. And before I introduce our speakers, I do want to share a video from one of our sponsors, which is Streetlight Data. They're sponsoring this session. All right, thanks to Streetlight Data for their sponsorship. I'd now like to turn the session over to Julie Harris, who's the Executive Director of Bike Walk Nebraska, and has also been part of a coalition of state-level biking and walking advocacy groups that meet and talk about issues they have in common at the state level. So we thought she'd be perfect to moderate this session on the Council of Active Transportation at AASHTO. So with that, Julie.
Great, thank you, Caron. Thank you again to the League of American Bicyclists. I'm Julie Harris from Bike Walk Nebraska. Very excited to be here. We've been attending the National Bike Summit for a long time, and this is a great speaker today that continues along the lines of many great speakers we've heard over the years. So happy to be here, and you can find us at bikewalknebraska.org. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce Toks Omishakin. He was appointed director of the California Department of Transportation by Governor Newsom in 2019. He manages a $15 billion budget and nearly 21,000 employees. We were just discussing the sheer size of his organization. And they have 50,000 lane miles of highways, maintain 13,000 bridges, permit more than 400 public use airports, fund 3 of America's busiest intercity rail services, and support more than 200 transit agents. He previously spent 8 years as the Deputy Commissioner with the Tennessee Department of Transportation and served in the Nashville Mayor's Office. He is the chair of the Active Transportation Council for the American Association of State and Highway Transportation Officials, known to those of us in this world as AASHTO, and he's on the board of America Walks. I've had a chance to listen to him in a few different occasions, and I know that he'll be a great, you'll learn a lot from him, and then we'll do questions and answers when he's completed his discussion. So I'm going to share my screen here. And Toks, you can take it away.
Thank you, Julie. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me? Sounds good. It's great to be with everybody on this beautiful day here, at least in California. It's still, we're still in the AM. It's good to share part of the day with you and talk a little bit about the Council on Active Transportation, where our work lies, and a little bit of some of the work that's taken place on the walking, biking, transit front at the California DOT and across California. But before that, just want to thank Julie for the intro. Thank you for the work that you're doing in Nebraska. I've worked a little bit with some of the DOT people there, and hope the new leadership in Nebraska is embracing these issues just as much as the prior leadership was. And to Carolyn and the team that continues to work on putting on the summit. Good to see you again. Thanks for all the work that you continue to do, even despite the challenging period that we've all gone through. The fact that the leadership there, still finding it important to put on the summit is great to see. Good to be a part of it again this year. So, like I mentioned, I want to cover some things at the council and also provide a quick update on some things happening in California, specifically at Caltrans. So from AASHTO's perspective, if you're not familiar with AASHTO, for those of you who do not know AASHTO or familiar with AASHTO's work, AASHTO has been around for about 50 years. Represents all 50 states, including the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico. It addresses all modes of transportation, and of course, it really sort of focuses on issues related to policy, advocacy, technical services, and leadership development. AASHTO also advances partnerships and promotes innovation amongst those 52 members of the organization. Some of you may be familiar with the fact that AASHTO restructured its committees in 2016. I was glad and excited to be a part of some of that restructuring effort. But as a part of that restructuring, and the reason why they restructured in the first place was because they wanted to kind of focus on all the modes of transportation even more. That effort was finalized in 2016. Several councils were created: a council on freight, a council on public transportation, a council on rail, but the council that I've been working more closely with over the last 5 years has been the council on active transportation. Council on active transportation, again, has all 52 members of AASHTO on it, all 50 states in Columbia, DC rather, and Puerto Rico. And the main things that the council's sort of going to be focused on at a very high level are things like the geometric design guidelines, the bicycle and pedestrian guidelines, the Green Book, as it's called. It's sort of the Bible for engineers and designers, the Highway Safety Manual, and the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Those are some of the key things that at a very high level that the council has been working on. I started off the first 2 years of the council being created, being the vice chair of the council, and Leslie Richards was the chair at the time. She's no longer with Pennsylvania DOT. She was the secretary of Pennsylvania DOT. She's moved on to the transit sector at the local level. And I've transitioned from being the vice chair of this council to being the chair for the last year and a half. Next slide. So just some other key things from a leadership standpoint to keep in mind. Recently, the president of AASHTO appointed Melissa Batula, who is the deputy secretary for Highway Administration at PennDOT, where Leslie Richards was. She was the vice chair. The vice chair is now Melissa Batula, who's the deputy secretary from PennDOT. She and we lead the council. But the council also has a 9-member steering committee. Some of those steering committee members may be from your state, but they're spread out all across the country. And the council's focus in 2021, this year, and moving forward, essentially will be really focused on safety, advancing equity, and issues around research, professional development, and communications. Just those 5 things I'll repeat: safety, advancing equity, research, professional development, and communications of the work that active transportation is doing. So if I could start off just sort of going through those a little bit, and then some of the things that are happening in California, and then we'll jump to the Q&A. From a research standpoint, we're working with the NCHRP, National Cooperative Highway Research Program, on sort of charting the course for the research that the council is going to be focused on for the next 5 years. That research is pretty wide ranging right now, but a lot of it's going to really key in on safety related issues and design related issues for the next several years. So we're excited about the NCHRP work that we're doing, as we partner with them on the work moving forward. From a professional development standpoint, one of the things that the council is looking to do is convene state DOTs to discuss common challenges, share best practices, and hopefully develop better solutions as a result of these convening efforts. I think we can all learn from one another as we look to partner together. Julie was asking me early on, or I think it may have been Carolyn, about what the difference is between some of the things happening in California and what it was like working in Tennessee on these issues. And there's some definite differences, but I think those opportunities to bring together different state DOTs and convene and talk about the progress that's been made and some of the challenges is one of the things that I think the council can continue to be very effective at. So look forward to that professional development part of our work. One example of this upcoming opportunity to sort of grow our professional development and partner will be a convening that will be happening this April. In this exchange, there'll be a small group of state DOT leaders selected to discuss important issues related to active transportation, safety, including data collection, asset management, project delivery, and a lot of that work, the results of that convening will be shared on the Center for Environmental Excellence's website afterwards, after the convening in April. If you have some questions about this, you can just reach out to, I'll give some instructions on how to find out more information about this exchange at the end of the discussion. So just a couple more things on the council front. From a communication standpoint, the council really knows that we have to do a better job of communicating the benefits of active transportation. We're going to be coming up with a communications working group. We've actually established this already, and one of the key goals of that communications working group will be to develop a communications toolkit. The toolkit will help the council advance our research roadmap, as well as provide a valuable resource to state DOTs trying to expand active transportation options in their respective states. So this is one of the things that we're looking forward to coming out of the work that our council will be doing, and in particular the communications working group. And quickly, before I go to addressing some of the things happening in California, I'll be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that there's a lot of excitement with the new administration that has now come into place in Washington under the leadership of Secretary Buttigieg. The council is looking forward to working with our new federal partners on issues critical to boat safety and equity in the active transportation space. I've had the opportunity to talk to and work with Secretary Buttigieg on several occasions. And I know this is something that he very much embraces. He understands these issues very much as a former mayor. His deputy secretary number 2, some of you may know Polly. I've worked with Polly for several years as well. She is former DOT director in the city of New York, and safety and issues related to active transportation were always on the forefront of the work that they did. So I think we have a great opportunity coming ahead to really make some critical advancements in this space in the coming months and years with the new team that is in Washington. One of the things that the council is working on with them already is the manual on uniform traffic and control devices, also known as the MUTCD. We're looking to provide comment on it. There have been some what I will call some sketchy things that have been discovered in the draft MUTCD that was put out by the prior leadership team, and those I think some of those things have been addressed or are being addressed, and much kudos to the current team for extending the review period on the MUTCD for at least, I think, for 90 days was the extension that was provided. So if you're not familiar with the MUTCD, it's something to look up. It provides a lot of guidance for signs and design related issues on highways across the country. So something to definitely pay attention to and look up. And finally, from our council, the council hasn't been working with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of NGOs in this space over the last year, mainly because of COVID. Our advocacy outreach has been limited, but we're going to be looking to sort of really ramp things back up. Somebody on our team to reach out to, the AASHTO team to reach out to, if your advocacy group is looking to or is wanting to engage the council and be a part of meetings or discussions that we may have coming up. Philip or Goyen Allen is someone to reach out to. I think Philip is probably on this meeting right now, but Philip's email, he's probably your best point of contact. Philip's email is PBALLEN, PB Allen, essentially, at ashto.org. PBAllen at ashto.org. So he's somebody to definitely reach out to for questions and how to your organization to get more involved with the council. Next slide. So in California, since I've been here, we have really sort of ramped up to another level our focus on active transportation. If you're familiar with some of the transportation efforts in the state prior, you know that California has always been ahead of the curve on these issues. The investments that are made in active transportation have always been probably ahead of where the rest of the country is, not only from an investment standpoint, but from a policy standpoint as well. Always a little bit ahead. And so part of the challenge for me in arriving here almost a year and a half ago was, how can we even do more? Not just for the sake of doing more, but because the need and the demand is actually there. People in this state understand and they want to see more happen on the active transportation front. And so, and it was one of the main reasons why the governor appointed me to this position, was because of the background I have on this issue. We've ramped it up even more. An example of this is from this headline you see from this, I think this may have been a press release from us. We not only wrote out an action plan, a new action plan for active transportation from our Department of Transportation, but we were also able to reallocate $100 million from our maintenance budget, our transportation maintenance budget that was going to highways. We took $100 million from essentially highway projects and put it onto active transportation projects for the next 3 to 4 years. This is on top of the already existing $100 million in active transportation money that comes from the state already. So about $200 million in active transportation money. And not only did we do this $100 million and in this format and sort of reprogramming plans that we had, but we did it in conjunction with the biking, walking advocacy group in the state. They had a seat at the table as this work was happening, as we reprogrammed this $100 million. And we decided jointly that this work was going to focus on underserved communities, that it was going to focus on be done through an equity lens, if you will. So big steps that we're taking, but it's just an example of the doubling down, the tripling down on the commitment to this issue, because the people in the state want it. But the people in the state also understand that this is an issue that goes beyond just improving mobility, but very much impacts economic activity, climate, environmental challenges, and public health challenges in the state as well. Next slide. So one of the places that we are making this emphasis even more clear is in our strategic plan. This is a very opportune time to be having this discussion with you, because this week or very early next week, we will be rolling out formally to the media and public in this state the new strategic plan for Caltrans, for the Department of Transportation. And one of or two elements that I will say this new plan embraces more than ever before. They may have had some, brief shout outs, in prior strategic plans, but this one very clearly embraces climate action and our role in climate activity. Some state DOTs may not be at this place yet where they can say something like that, but we're clearly there. There's no shying away from it. We understand our role when it comes to GHG emissions in California. 40% of GHG comes from the transportation sector. And we know how much more we need to do to improve land use and transportation options for people in the state to reduce that 40% down to a level that we've never seen in the state's history. It can't just be a focus on electric vehicles, even though there's a lot of excitement around electric vehicles and what's being generated from our state. Again, very advanced, ahead of the curve on when it comes to creating more ZEVs for the transportation market. But we know multimodal transportation, transit, walking, biking opportunities, rail will have to be essential, will have to be key in making those reductions. So our strategic plan focuses very heavily on climate action, and also addresses very closely, more than ever, probably first time, issues around equity, and the fact that we need to approach the work that we do externally and internally differently. We've put together a framework for equity in Caltrans. If you're not familiar with it, it's something to look up. We put out an equity statement. We've created an office called the Caltrans Office of Race and Equity. And the framework around equity is based on what we call the 4 Ps in California, or Caltrans rather: people, projects and programs, partnerships, and the last P is planet. And there's a robust information that I can share about that, but we can talk about it later. But that's essentially the framework around equity. A lot of that's highlighted in our new strategic plan, and climate action, again, is also a key part of the strategic plan. Next slide. The next slide, just really quickly, and I would really rather just jump to Q&A for any questions people may have for me. So I'll be quick on this. Safety is one of the sort of foundational principles that we are working through at California DOT. This is a point of emphasis for us as a priority, but I get tired of talking about safety as a priority, because to me, safety should be a living point, not just a talking point. And all our work should be done through a lens of safety, and I think we're doing that more and more. But for those of you who are not aware, the most vulnerable users of the system, just like in many of your states, the most vulnerable users of the system have seen an uptick in California. 10 people die on the transportation system in our state every single day. 10 people, the highest rate in the entire country. And at least 3 of those, 2 to 3 of those are people who are walking or biking. And so we know we have to do better here when it comes to our vulnerable users. And we know we can get to 0 deaths. I believe we can. I know there's a lot of discussion about Vision Zero and how lofty the idea may be. But I keep reminding people that there are cities in Europe who have gotten there. Helsinki and Oslo are 2 examples today that have gone from, 60 and 80 pedestrian and cycling fatalities to absolutely 0 in an entire year. Not a single pedestrian or cyclist killed. So to get there, the safe systems approach has to be embraced, has to be used, I believe. And that's the place that we're shifting to in California. So a lot of work on safety ahead for us in the state. Next slide, I think it may be the last one here. Yeah, just for more information, here's how you can reach me by phone or email, and recently joined Twitter as well. So way to quickly get in touch with me if you're trying to reach me. So good to be part of the discussion at the summit this year. It's an unusual format that I think we're all getting a little bit more and more used to, but glad to nevertheless be a part of the summit again this year, and look forward to the Q&A with Julie. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. That was fantastic. We've already had some great questions coming in, and I think first and foremost, when I was thinking through, what's the question that I could ask to bridge the gap, all others are sending in their questions. It's already been included in many. People are already asking, what can you tell us about the AASHTO bike guide? And when will we see the new version of that?
Well, I should have the answer to that right on my sleeve. We're not the body that's putting this together from AASHTO. The geometric design team is actually putting it together. But Philip, if you're still on, if you could put that in the chat, the timeline on where we are, where AASHTO is with the bike guide. It should be anytime soon. It should be ready. The last time I got a briefing on it, we were pretty close. But Philip, Alan, if you're still there, if you could drop in the chat the timeline or who to contact from a geometric design team on this. But the our council rather is heavily involved in it.
Great.
So Philip just said right there that he's confirming the timeline. So he'll get it in and how to be up to speed on it. Thanks, Philip.
Is the council taking a lead on those MUTCD comments? I think I should also mention that from the League of American Bicyclists, I think it was Ken McLeod who was deep into the details of that, and he was one of the people that caught one of those really troubling pieces of information that was in there that got fixed right away. So kudos to Ken and the league for being the ones to really keep an eye on the details there for all of us. But is your council also weighing in on that, or how do you work with that process? No,
that's a good question, Julie. Yeah, we are. We are. Most of us have, as you know, full-time jobs that we're doing in sort of partnering with AASHTO to get this work done. So AASHTO staff is looking at the guide, but our team, the council team, actually is as well. I mentioned that there are 9 steering committee members on the council. One of those council members is Jackie DeWolf from Massachusetts. She's kind of been our lead person on this and has found some things and gave us an update and a briefing at our last council meeting on some of the things that are being found. I'm not surprised that some of the things, supposedly federal highways has said some of the things were typos and things that were just meant. Julie's throwing the air quotes at us. That some of those things were just typos and were missed. But I think it's a good lesson for us, that for all of us, that we just need to pay attention, because things like that, just before you know it, just end up in law. And of course, these things can be reversed, but it sets a bad precedence once it gets into place in the first place. So even with the new leadership that is in place in Washington now, I don't think we can get complacent. I think some people are saying that the guide, not the guide, but the MUTCD should just be pulled. The manual should be pulled all together and start from scratch. I didn't say that, but some people have been making those comments. I think we should give the 90-day period an opportunity for now to just see what can be pulled from it, or improved from it, rather, not necessarily pulled from it, but improved from it, and see whether or not it's palatable for people to move forward on. But if not, something to consider is sort of a total revamp as well. But I want to give the 90-day period a shot. And Jackie DeWolf from our team is the key person on from Massachusetts, MassDOT, on the manual.
Great. Yeah, cheers to Ken. We all owe Ken McLeod a beer on that one.
Yeah, and yeah, thanks to Ken. I forgot to say that. Thanks to Ken for finding that. Yeah, that's great.
Here's a question. Does the AASHTO Council on Safety also focus on vulnerable road user safety, or only on motorist safety? Is there any overlap with the Council on Active Transportation's focus on safety?
I'm not sure I understood that question completely. One more time, Julie.
Does the AASHTO Council on Safety also focus on vulnerable road user safety, or only on motorist safety?
No, good question. No, they do. It's a comprehensive, it's the entire gamut of safety challenges. So they're not just looking at automobile safety. They're looking at the full picture. But I would like to think that we're the lead on safety issues related to active transportation. I'm not sure everybody from AASHTO agrees with that, but I would like to think that the team that we have assembled on our council side is probably paying more attention to specifically the issues related to active transportation safety than the broader council.
On behalf of the red states like Nebraska, who are not fortunate to have the density and the resources to really do a lot of the great things that California and other places are doing. The state highways that run through towns and become local streets really are, in small towns, are really tricky and dangerous in a lot of cases. What rural aspects of the work that you're doing with the council can you talk about that we can look forward to discussing with our own state DOTs?
Well, that's a good question, Julie. Here's what I'll say about that. Before I got to California, I think, similar to a lot of people who have just visited the large cities, you go to San Francisco and LA and Oakland and San Diego, you don't spend any time in the more rural parts, or you don't even know there's a rural parts of California. There definitely is. There are some very small towns in rural parts of the state that I'm learning more and more about and have visited, and know they have similar concerns and needs when it comes to issues like this. And states like yours, Julie, in Nebraska, some people may feel like, well, yeah, it's a red state and it's a rural state. They don't care about this stuff. But I think it's important there. I think it's just as important. It may not be for the same reasons. For example, it may not be necessarily for issues related to, climate action, for example, climate change, because you don't have the same congestion levels or automobile traffic levels that a state like a California may have, but just for general mobility needs and economic development needs. Active transportation is important. one of the things that I'm hoping can be re-emphasized, and the council will work on, will be re-emphasized in a new transportation bill, in a reauthorization or an authorization, is funding for the TA program or the TAP program that especially is specifically geared towards town centers and sort of revitalizing town centers. The old downtowns that we see in many communities in our states. When I lived in Tennessee, which is not the most urbanized state, and probably had 4 or 5 major urban centers, a lot of smaller cities, they thrived off of those opportunities to sort of reinvest in those downtown main streets. And so I'm hoping that gets re-emphasized in the TAP program, and the council will be pushing for that. The money that we spend nationally, the dedicated money we spend right now on the transportation alternatives program is like 2% of the overall transportation budget. I'm going to be pushing for that money to be tripled from 900 million roughly to at least hoping for 3 billion. So just to the point you made about how small towns can benefit from this as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. That speaks to, I'm sure, what Caron will want me to say about how important our Hill meetings are, reinforcing that that conversation about the funding and how we need more funding for biking and walking all the way around. You mentioned the issue of safety and that fatalities for biking and walking are increasing. Feels like we know how to build safe infrastructure. Why is it so hard to get a handle on reducing fatalities for vulnerable users?
Boy, that's a big one. That's a big question. So I think I think the safe systems approach that is picking up a little bit of steam is something that we all need to be paying attention to. If you're not familiar with it, if you're an NGO, if you are from a DOT or local government, it's something to pay a little bit of attention to, because it's shown its success in Europe for sure. I don't know if it's completely, something that can be replicated in the States, but I know Vision Zero and their team is talking a lot about this. But the more we look at these challenges as a system and not just as an individual issue, I think the better off we are. I was in a conversation last week where somebody asked a similar question about why we're still doing so much victim blaming. Like, a pedestrian gets hit, or a cyclist gets hit or killed, and it's immediately the cyclist or the pedestrian's fault. It's because the enforcement community, the default mindset is that those people are not supposed to be there, kind of thing. They're not supposed to be on the road. I mean, it's thinking about the system only as it's for cars, and not for people in general. And that's the place we really need to get to, and to understand is that it's an entire system for people to move, and we've struggled to do that in recent years. But I think that systems thinking is picking up steam, and so the more our cities and states embrace it, I think the more the further off we're going to get on this.
It's a pretty straightforward, good question. Is funding for bicycling politically bipartisan? What has been your experience with that?
Somebody's getting straight to the point there. That's a tough one to answer, because when I think about, some of you may not be familiar with AASHTO. AASHTO was the first transportation bill that was really considered comprehensive, and sort of holistically looking at all the issues around transportation. It was passed in 1991. The secretary at the time was Secretary Mineta. The president at the time was none other than George Bush #1. So a Republican administration. But that bill set forth a path for state DOTs to create positions called bicycle and pedestrian coordinator positions at state DOTs around the country. So first time ever, exactly 30 years ago, actually this year. And I was one of the first city bike ped coordinators for the, and I think I was the first one actually in the state of Tennessee, many moons ago. But that a lot of that work came from a Republican administration, is my point. Somehow this work has sort of, delved off into, right versus left and all that kind of stuff. I try not to buy into that and try to stick to the why this work is important, and not get caught up in it's a red issue or blue issue, but like, why are we doing this? Why are we advocating for, stronger policies and investments in these areas? It's not because of party. I could care less about that. It's about people. It's about the public's health. It's about the environment. It's about economic growth. It's about mobility. And I try to emphasize that more, and try to stay away from the political stuff.
I have one more that I think we're coming up on time here, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of us are going to be going, well, not going back home. We're home already. We're going to be coming out of this virtual conference and need to work with our state DOTs. And now that you're sitting in that chair, how can advocates and the Council on Active Transportation work together to promote biking and walking within the state DOTs?
Yeah, this is a pretty common question I get about NGOs working with government and working with CAT and things like that. One thing that I've always found to work, and I've said this before, probably even in this meeting at the summit, but it's to criticize government privately and praise government publicly. Let's say that again: criticize privately and praise publicly. I think that a lot of states, and I'm not going to speak for Nebraska, Julie, but a lot of states are trying to do the right thing here. And some are not. They're just not there. But whenever you get those small wins with your respective state or city government, as small as it may be, put out an op-ed. Put out something publicly that says, "Well, look at my state or my city DOT. Look what they did." I mean, they understand. But when they mess up, don't be bashful about sending the director or your secretary or whoever it is an email and say, "Look, what in the world are you doing?" And really honing in on the issue and how important the issue is. And I gave you Philip's email earlier that Melissa on the AASHTO team as well. They're a great resource for places that are doing good work on this front. So keep the communication lines open. Be tough on people personally. Ask for a meeting, a discussion, but publicly, I think a lot of folks are really trying to do the right thing. I know in California that's definitely the case. So just some good advice I've learned over the years.
Agreed. I think those of us in more rural states can really take that to heart. We do really need to focus on those small wins, because the big ones are few and far between, but it's the small ones, once they start stacking up, that's when we start really getting progress. So that's going to be important. Philip from your team just chimed in to say that he doesn't have a specific timeline for the AASHTO Bike Guide, but the target is 2023. So that's good. Maybe breaking news here. Caron, 2 o'clock is our stop time. Am I right?
Yes.
So
Right
we're
there.
at 59, so we should probably start wrapping up. So I guess I'll just, on behalf of all of us here tuning in the League, we want to thank you, Director Omishakin, for your time today, for your comments, for your willingness to be a partner and offer resources for all of us to use as we move forward. I think, Caron, unless you have any other final housekeeping matters, I think that's about it for our session.
And I just want to pipe in again and say thank you from the league. We really appreciate you being here, and thanks to you as well, Julie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Good to be with everybody again this year. Bye-bye.